Hey there, it's Mama C again. Hey, in this engaging segment from the CHD Connects Hearts YouTube interviews, we're going to dive deep into the experiences and stories of those affected by congenital heart defects. Each interview highlights personal journeys and shared challenges, emphasizing the importance of community and support for families and patients navigating this journey. We explore the latest advancements in medical care and in the inspiring resilience displayed by patients and caregivers alike. It just never ceases to amaze me. It is a powerful reminder of how connection and understanding can make a significant difference in our lives. By tuning in, you'll not only gain valuable insights, but you'll also become part of a larger conversation about hope and awareness surrounding congenital heart defects, and we need that. Join us in championing the cause and making our voices heard. I'll see you on the other side. Welcome, guys. I am Christy Pace, also known as Mama C, with CHD Connects Hearts, and today we have Shane and Jessie. And tell me about this beautiful boy you got.
This is Beau, and he's
Hi,
4.
Beau.
Say hi. And he's our little heart warrior.
How old are you, Beau?
4. He's shy.
What condition does Beau have? What was he diagnosed with and when?
So the umbrella diagnosis is DiGeorge Syndrome, or 22q. Under that diagnosis, he has truncus arteriosus type 2, and that's his heart condition that was caused by DiGeorge.
One of the things we deal with this CHD issue in our lives is we get down to the nitty-gritty of that diagnosis and it means something to us. When we're talking to other people, it's jibber jabbish. I mean, it makes no sense. So can you get a little more detailed?
DiGeorge syndrome, he has a deletion of his 22nd chromosome, and the truncus arteriosus, typically there are 2 main arteries that are close to each other, but they're separate, and his were fused together in the womb, and so when he was born they had to separate those and make 2 separate trunks, allowed the oxygen to exchange correctly in his heart.
When was he diagnosed?
Well, we found out about the heart issue first. That was the 20-week anatomy scan in utero, and from there we knew there was about a 30% chance of DiGeorge syndrome, and so that was a amniocentesis test that came back positive. So we found out everything before he was born, which was actually really good for us. Even though it was a lot to deal with while being pregnant and during COVID and all that, it kind of helped us prepare for what was to come once he was born and recovery and things like that.
Diagnosis, I mean, as a mama, is he your firstborn? Because I know you'd have another child.
Yeah, he's our second born.
How old is the sibling?
Daughter is 6 now, so they're 2 years apart.
All right, so you had 2 years, you had a healthy heart baby, and then 2 years, you get pregnant. We're all excited.
Yeah, we found out the sex. He was a boy. We were so excited. And then 20 weeks, we get all this news. In our situation, it was always before a holiday. It was, we found out right before Thanksgiving he had a heart condition. And then right before Christmas, the possibility of DiGeorge. And then right after New Year's, it was confirmation of DiGeorge syndrome. So it was just one thing after another. A lot to deal with.
How did you deal with it as a mama?
You have to adjust your thinking because everybody's looking for the healthy baby and dealing with typical newborn issues and lifestyle, and then all of that kind of goes away. When you get the diagnosis, you start researching and you start finding out more information, and it's a little bit much. It's an overload situation, so I take that with a grain of salt. Maybe don't research everything on the internet. Don't overload, and stick with people who know a little bit more about what specifically is going on with your child, because there's so many different heart diagnoses and people in different situations. I reached out during the time, especially it was during COVID. So it was very isolating. So I was in the hospital by myself to kind of keep myself from feeling all the emotions, and found a local heart group and then a national heart group. And it was so helpful to know you're not alone, in that situation, even though you are totally isolated in
Yes.
quarantine, in this hospital that was basically run with a skeleton crew at the time, that there's other people out there going through the same thing or very similar situations. So that really helped me kind of compartmentalize and deal with our situation and what my son was going through, to know that other families have been through this, and to see not only the heartbreak but the success stories. So that was really inspirational for me.
So what about you, Shane? When you found out about the diagnosis, how'd that go for you?
I mean, you're shocked as usual, but I'm also, because I'm a special ed teacher, kind of open to everything and nothing really new kind of deal.
True. I didn't think about that aspect for you with that diagnosis. I'm sure it was a shock because now it's your child.
Yeah. Like, I know the possibilities that, it may not be that bad.
Right. So now what about surgery? When did he have his first surgery?
So he was born in Knoxville, transported that night to Nashville. So we had no time with him. We had a few hours. And from there, and it wasn't, I had just given birth, so I couldn't travel. He stayed in the hospital for 9 days. At 9 days old, he had his first heart repair, and they had to fix the truncus. And he also had a hole in his heart. So they did what's called a VSD patch, so our little boy could live. So he was born in April, and we weren't released until August.
So what was in the hospital? Did you get to go there? And if how much?
So we visited, I think, after about 3 days, because I just couldn't take it anymore. But that also, I needed to recover a little bit from, delivering a child. So once I was recovered enough to travel, we went there after 3 days waiting for his surgery. Even though it was very frustrating at the time because you want to make sure your child has what they need, we understood that situation. On the 9th day, we were there for surgery. Initially, the surgery was supposed to be 5 hours to repair, and then a little bit of recovery time. And so we're waiting, and it turned into a 12-hour surgery.
Oh my gosh. Was that from complications?
There were, just the size, you think about it, the doctor's operating on a heart the size of a walnut.
Yeah, they're just so tiny.
The heart surgery is so complex. We were so lucky. They did everything correctly. Everything went well, considering the complications. He didn't have any issues coming out of surgery. However, because it was a 12-hour surgery, he was placed on ECMO after the surgery, which is common.
How did you all do in that moment?
It's kind of something you can't think about too much, because it's just like looking at the internet and getting too much information. It's overwhelming, and we tried to busy ourselves. Anything to distract yourself from sitting there thinking about everything that could be happening in that operation room. And of course, they updated us periodically. The nurse in the operating room would let us know how the surgery was going, but it's just something you can't sit there and dwell on it, because it's out of your hands at that point, and it's just a waiting game. And like I said, it went from 5 hours to 12.
Additional timeline had to just scare you so much.
It was. We didn't know what to expect. We were the last people in the waiting room. It was nighttime. Everyone else had gone home. And the doctor came out looking exhausted and looking a little defeated. We're just waiting to hear that he didn't make it. But he was okay. A longer surgery, but he came out of it well. He was on ECMO for, I think it was 6 days.
Were there additional complications from the ECMO that you know of?
Yeah, to this day, his veins are scarred. I don't know if that will ever, get better or fully recover. It's kind of hard every now and then to get a blood draw from him. And especially at the time, he had a procedure when he came out of, and then he had to be hospitalized here in Knoxville. And they couldn't get any blood drawn from his body. His veins were done, and they had to actually try to draw blood from his scalp.
Oh my God.
So when you have blown every access point in the human body that you have to go to the scalp.
That's pretty bad.
So we've been through quite a bit.
So I want to ask, how long had you all been married at this time that you had the diagnosis?
2011. So 7 years. We'd been together for 17 years.
You guys have a real good solid foundation.
If you would like to connect hearts with families on similar journeys, scan the QR code now and join us as CHD Connects Hearts.
One thing I've noticed and watching is that, one, I don't feel parents and individuals are prepared for the journey. We immediately go into the medical, even when we're even at that diagnosis at 23 weeks, automatically start diving into that medical side.
I think that fuels it more, like a funnel. It's just like you start going down this hole and there's not much coming in on the self-care and preparing yourself for the journey that's coming up. And that's one of the things that I'm hoping to be able to check in on that front end with people and help
Right.
prepare that. Also would like to get into hospitals, having a set up area where we can do support groups in the hospital. Remind these parents that it's okay to walk away for a few minutes
Mm-hmm.
and take care of yourself
Right.
so that you can be that strongest and best advocate that you can, and get them connected with the people there, because those people are typically same age group journeys, right? So you can grow
Right.
with them as you go. So there's lots of things I want to see change in the CHD community. On the mental health side, on the emotional side, what I'm seeing and what I'm experiencing with my daughter and her family is tremendous amount of fear.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous amount of fear, guilt,
Mm-hmm.
anger,
Mm-hmm.
frustration, depression, the reality that you don't have a normal life. My daughter put it to me one day. She said, I wish I never knew this life. Wouldn't give up my grandson, wouldn't give up her son for the world, but sure wish we didn't know this life. It's just
Right.
very different. And how do you feel it's impacted your social life with family, friends, that inability to grasp the reality of what you're living with and what you've gone through and what you were going through?
I guess from that standpoint, because it was COVID, everybody was separated anyway. But then, our son came home on a feeding pump. So we had a G tube, because a lot of children who have heart surgeries, and I didn't know this until I had a heart baby, the muscles around your heart control how you swallow and how you eat. And so a lot of heart patients have G tubes or J tubes or NJ tubes. They have to come home on these feeding pumps, which is a whole ordeal. This is,
The feeding schedules are so hard, between the feeding schedule and the medication schedule.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
man.
this is, you're basically a full-time nurse now.
Yes.
When your baby comes home. If we did try to go somewhere, getting kids places is hard enough with the diaper bag and formula and things like that. Well, we still had all of that. But on top of that, we're taking a feeding pump and tubing, and we have to make sure the pump is charged or he can't eat. We have to make sure we're in a place where I can hold him still so he doesn't pull out his G tube. It was very complicated. We had a medication that had to be refrigerated and
Yes.
every 4 hours.
Yes.
That complicates travel and
Right.
any kind of social engagement.
Mhm.
Just going to the doctor, the necessary leaving the house is exhausting. So
And
it's kids on top of, it's next
yes.
level.
And not to mention the amount of doctor's appointments they require.
Right.
How do you go through the birth process? Go through people think one of the things that we've dealt with a lot is, oh, how was the surgery? Well, it was great. He did fantastic. I'm so glad he's better. No, we're not better.
And that was something I don't think I was prepared for, as much as I knew what to expect with the surgery going in. You don't realize the fallout after, and you don't realize the involvement when you get home. I was not able to work for months after he came home. It took 5 months for me to get him stable enough, between his therapies and his doctor appointments and his medication schedule, just to be able to leave him with a nurse. We had to get nursing care for me to go back to work. But, we had hospital stays. We had a couple scares when he got home that I would not have been able to go back to work with.
And one of the things you don't realize, he came home on 7 narcotics that we had to wean him off.
Weaning off that narcotics.
Going through withdrawals, and
Yes.
here you have a heart patient going through withdrawals.
Yes.
That you're trying to keep calm, because
Yes.
he's a heart patient.
Yes, I know. I remember when Hunter came home, he came home and they didn't know it at the time, but he came home and he had a stomach virus.
Oh, wow.
The day we were bringing him home, and he was throwing up and he was very cranky. Well, up until that point, he had spent 5 months in the hospital, and he had his Glen, or his Norwood and his Glen, and that's when he got to go home, was after the Glen. They were basically told when he's in the hospital that a crying baby's a dying baby.
Wow.
That's the message that they received, right? So whenever he would start crying before that last surgery, they would literally come in and just take over and push him out. So they didn't get that ability to console their child
Mm-hmm.
for that first almost 5 months
And make that connection.
and make that full connection. Get home and he's sick, so he doesn't feel good. He's fine on the heart. Now,
Right.
he's now able to cry some more,
Mm-hmm.
but he starts crying and they both panic. They stood back because that's what they were told to do and taught to do and not taught how to do this.
Right.
So they literally handed the baby to me.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that's been
Now,
hard.
hold on a second. So this was during COVID. I got to meet Hunter one time, and that was when he went into cardiac arrest, and they didn't think he was going to make it. So this is the second time I'm around this child. I don't know this child yet. I'm not bonded with this child. He's screaming and crying, and they hand him to me because they don't know what to do. And I'm going, okay, now I have a heart warrior baby in my arms. I don't know, and I don't know what to do either.
It's a lot.
It's so much.
Mhm.
It's so much. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Shane.
From the last time, while Beau was in the hospital, his heart stopped 3 times. And during the last time, I was one of the times I was staying, had been there for a week or so with him. And it was during the night that he was crying, like you say, and he got so hysterical that his heart stopped. And I was the one that actually started doing CPR before the nurse
wow.
got in.
You were holding him.
I was.
And his heart stopped and he died in his arms.
Yeah, he just went limp.
And then the nurses came rushing in and were doing resuscitation. And so the poor Shane, the little bit of time he gets to spend in the hospital, because we were so far away, we had to drive 3 hours and swap out. Yeah.
And you don't know. You just, it could be early stages. Important for us to mention, just for the people who, new people who might be watching this, that, once you get to a certain level of surgical procedures, the odds of that happening are pretty slim. The odds of something like that occurring it's very small after you've got them stabilized, a slow progression.
Right.
Yeah. So I just wanted to make sure we said that in case.
And everybody's different. This was just,
Everybody is different.
It happened to be the perfect storm, between a medication dose, and he didn't feel good. He was in pain. He got upset, and it was too much of a strain on his heart. They do step down units, something we had to learn about, that there's different levels of care. It's like you're in ICU the whole time, but there's different levels of ICU.
I didn't know that. I knew it for adults. That's what you always think for these babies is NICU, but it's actually CICU, which is the neonatal cardiac level, and then 2 step downs from there.
It was 3 levels.
3 levels. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
And, you talked about getting to meet your grandson. My parents met my son when he was 4 months old, and it was purely because we were so far away and they weren't allowed in the hospital. It's not a typical birth story, and it's not what you expect, when having all these wonderful fantasies about the bouncing baby, coming home, and that there may be a delay there coming home. There may be a lot of nights in the hospital, and your life's going to look different for a while.
How did you deal with the setting up the nursery and potential baby shower? How did you deal with that?
That's one of my biggest regrets. I never had a baby shower because I didn't want to come home to baby things if he didn't make it through the surgery. Probably should have had one after, but we never did.
Time kind of got very occupied for you.
It did, yeah. We were a little bit busy for a long time, and before we knew it, it was his first birthday. So, he wasn't technically a baby really anymore. But something I would tell people is just celebrate them for however long you have them.
Great. I think it's definitely quality over quantity. It's changed my perspective a lot in regards to that. We also have to be careful, and this is where it gets hard because we are still raising a little person, and we don't want to spoil them to the point that
yeah,
it's a very hard balance with this because I know the first 3 years, we just showered him with everything. It was like you're gonna have the best birthday, you're gonna have the best Friday, you're gonna have the best Saturday, because that fear, that overwhelming fear. And at some point you kind of go, wait a minute, we can't do that when they're
if you do that their whole lives, we're gonna have a little problem. But we don't procrastinate anymore. Take the trip, buy the thing, whatever it is, do it.
Take the pictures,
all the pictures, do it.
So where is he at now? How are things for him now, and what's the future looking like based on medical advice?
He's doing great, and we've even had, he's in school now. He goes to pre-K, and he's delayed. He has a speech delay, but we went from every therapy. He had food therapy, speech therapy, physical and occupational therapies, all the
gee.
therapies. We are just in speech therapy now, and it's really just a consultation. He's gone from nonverbal to delayed.
Amazing.
He's come a long way, and it was a long road with a lot of work.
Congratulations to both of you, Mom and Dad, because that's a lot about you all.
And so he's doing well in school. He is social. You know, we still have 6-month appointments, and every 6 months it's kind of a beast that I go to all the appointments every 6 months, but I'll take it. But he's very stable with his heart condition. We're just waiting for him to outgrow his donor conduit. So we know he'll have surgeries in the future. And there's no guarantee on when he'll have his next surgery. We may have some cath lab visits here and there. He also has pulmonary stenosis, which is the arteries hardening going from his heart to his lungs. So you have to watch that. But other than that, he's an active little boy. Yeah, he's on growth hormone too. That's a DiGeorge thing, which is separate from the heart defect. So he's a little bit small for his age, but he's getting there. But other than that, he's very typical. Just a wonderful, smiley little stinker, you know. He and his sister play and fight and love each other. So, you know.
Isn't it amazing the strength that these babies have?
Oh, yeah. There was a quote I read while I was in the hospital that said, "They'll never remember, but I'll never forget."
Amen on that one.
Mm-hmm.
I was there for his Fontan, where I couldn't be there for the first two, and his other open heart that we had before he came home. I got to be there for his Fontan. You think you know?
No.
There's no words that can describe that process.
Yeah.
And what you're experiencing and what you're going through in those moments.
Yeah.
And you're right. I mean, the odds of them remembering are very slim. But I will never forget. His mom and dad will never forget. You don't forget that.
No.
So how do you deal with anxiety and fears of the future? How do you all deal with that individually and as a couple? Do you talk about it?
You know, it helps because no one else is going through this except the people who are right there with you. You know, whether it's a husband or a sister or a mom, they don't know until they've been in that hospital room and they've seen it for themselves, as you know. So to have someone that's lived it with you, to be able to talk to them about it openly and honestly without judgment, I think is very helpful, because even though you're both in that room together, you may be feeling very different things. You know, one of you may be upset and is crying and the other one's angry. You know, you can't control that. But also reaching out to other people. I had a best friend that I would call, you know, whenever I had a chance to step out of the hospital room and just go outside for a minute. I could call her and just unload and she would just listen, you know, and that was so helpful. So having a support system, you need people to catch you.
There's one thing, if you had to pick one thing that you just don't think, if you had to go through it again, one thing that you could not go through it without again. If you had to do it again, if there was one thing, what's the top of your list item that you would put?
I mean, one thing that I didn't have that would have been nice, there was a hospital social worker that would come and ask me what I needed, but I don't think I knew what I needed at the time.
I agree.
And I think it would have been nice if maybe a mental health person, whether it was a therapist or a psychologist, came and had a chat and maybe helped me unpack some things and help me realize what I needed, you know, just to offer that help.
So putting yourself back in that spot, and I'm asking, I want to make sure that we offer the right things. Do you feel that social worker had said to you, you know, what is it that, you know, what do you need? What can I do for you? Then said on Tuesdays and Fridays, there's a support group meeting. And if you were able to go into something like that, do you think that could have made a difference for you?
That would have made a huge difference. And I actually heard at our hospital, I don't know if every hospital has this, that normally they offered that, but everything was shut down because of COVID. It wasn't available to me at the time. But I would have liked that. I would have enjoyed to talk with other people or just listen to what other people are going through. Because, you know, if you've been there for 3 months, you might be a little more open and adjusted to talking about your situation than someone who's they're just had, the kids just came out of the operation and they don't know what to do with themselves.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And that's one of the things why I wanted to set this community up the way I did. Wanted as a, go as you grow. And I wanted it to be connected to the point where, yes, you have the separate channels, but you have the people who have gone before you who can still be there to help.
Right.
Because as I was saying, all of these surgeries, one of them is like 70-year-old surgery between the Glen, the Fontaine, the Norwood. But those seem to be really prominent, even outside of just HLHS. If we look at the big picture of things, we're still at the front of the CHD, the congenital heart defect, the children.
Right.
Living longer lives. You've got congenital heart disease, and then you have defects. And the defects, it's only been in the last 50 years, really, that they've kind of gotten it down. Last 40, 50 years, they've gotten it down. And we're seeing that longevity. Because of that, we're still at the front of this frontier.
Right.
We don't have 200 years of information to pull from down into us. So, to try to pull this all together a little bit more cohesive to where we can be actually giving back to the research communities.
Right.
That's one of the things I want to see. I want this community to be able to be part of the full research circle. And there's so many parts that are missing that can make a huge difference. Because if the parents aren't strong and healthy,
you can't give anything to anyone if you're not okay yourself. So.
And those children need a lot more.
Yeah.
So is there anything you all would like to add? Anything you would say to a new mom, new dad, new couple?
Take it one day at a time. Don't look at too much information because you're going to overload yourself. And I always tried to stay busy because if you just sit in your thoughts, you're gonna have a pity party and nobody has time for that. You've got a kid to take care of, so keep yourself busy, find an outlet. Something.
I think a lot of it on my part is to advocate for your child. You are the parent, even though you might be sitting in the hospital room and there's doctors and nurses all around. If you think they're not right or not normal, something's going on, you say so, even before they find out, because you're the parent.
I agree with that. There's a connection that no medical doctor is going to get with your child like you are.
Right. And you're sitting with that kid all day, every day, where they're just coming in and checking every now and then. You still,
and they're looking for the same boxes to check off.
You know them better than they do.
And not all of us fit in the same box. I want to congratulate you on your journey.
You too.
You've done an amazing job. You have done an amazing job. Think about this. Think about graduation from physical therapy, graduation from occupational therapy,
food therapy. We got him on growth hormones. He's getting bigger.
So we have growth and development, and we have some speech, communication, socialization. 2 years back, did you think you would get here?
We were worried. He had a speech board, to communicate with, and that it was a little nerve-wracking. And just getting him to eat something, that was, so I'm like, this kid's got to eat.
Now, does he still have his tube?
He has a G tube. We're this close to getting rid of it. We're very close. So
you're still doing medications and G tube, or are you now on oral?
His is for water goals. He came home on a lot of calcium, which most heart babies do, but there was a little lag in getting him set up with the doctor here, and he ended up with too much calcium in his kidneys. So we're still fighting to get that out of his kidneys. So we have to give him water through his G-tube. But once that's gone, the G-tube's gone, and we're getting close.
Hunter got rid of his about a month ago. 6 weeks ago, I think. September. I think it was September. But his hole isn't closing right.
Oh, no.
So he may have to have surgery for that.
Okay.
We'll see how that goes. They're trying the silver nitrate.
Right.
Now to try to get it to heal on its own.
Okay.
So hopefully that'll avoid this.
There's a heads up for us. You never know till you talk to somebody else who's been there.
See? Yeah. Yeah, and he's got a heart cath on the 16th.
Oh, wow.
His pressures are too high. So, another step on the road.
Yep.
So, as a dad, you say advocate. That's your number one?
Yep.
I agree. What do you recommend to the dads out there? The best thing they can do to support their wives?
I mean, just be there, and no matter whatever they're feeling, just be there. Sometimes you might think it's irrational or it may not be right, but don't just be there, whatever it is.
I think that's hard for a lot of men, don't you? Especially in the moments of additional stress.
And that's, men, we're kind of like, most of them are fixers, at least I am. It's like, I want to fix it. Well, sometimes we can't go fix this. We just need to be there.
Need to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, y'all have done a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that your grandson's doing great and clearly hitting some milestones of his own.
He is. We're definitely at milestones. I contribute that to his mama. She doesn't quit. She doesn't give up. And she keeps all the appointments and she goes above and beyond. And the entertainment, you know, it's not just play, teaching and playing. And I mean, it's a lot. He's in the braces because he's got from the ECMO, we think, or one of the surgeries, he's got the hemiplegia, the left-sided cerebral palsy. And it's mild, but his OT's been working with them and it's doing well.
Good.
He's improving on that. So
CHD moms are another kind.
I thought I was a decent mom, and then I'm going, hey, God is pale in comparison to what these women are doing. Thank you all very much.
Yeah.
And we're here on your journey with you. If you need anything, please reach out.
And I always tell other, CHD parents, if you ever have questions or you need someone to listen or you're not sure about something, reach out.
I would love to have you guys as founding members of CHD Connects Hearts.
Sure.
That would be wonderful.
Thank you for joining us for this segment of CHD Connects Heart YouTube interviews. We hope you found our discussions to be insightful and inspiring. Hey, if you or someone you know is navigating the challenges of congenital heart defect, remember, you are not alone. Our community is here to support you with resources, stories, and shared experiences. We invite you to subscribe to our channel for more valuable content and stay updated with our future interviews. By engaging with us, you can help spread awareness and connect with others facing similar journeys. And you can also join our private community online, or you can use the new CHD Connects Heart app. Together, we can make a difference, and we can foster a supportive network. Until next time, take care and keep your hearts connected.